On Monday, August 6, 1945, a mushroom cloud billows into the sky about 1 hour after an atomic bomb was dropped by American B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, detonating above Hiroshima, Japan. Nearly 80,000 people are believed to have been killed immediately, with possibly another 60,000 survivors dying of injuries and radiation exposure by 1950. Following Germany's defeat, the Soviet Union quietly began redeploying its battle-hardened European forces to the Far East, in addition to about 40 divisions that had been stationed there since 1941, as a counterbalance to the million-strong Kwantung Army. A North American B-25 makes a bomb run on a Japanese destroyer escort off Formosa in April of 1945. The island-hopping strategy adopted by the U. This aerial photograph made on day 5 of the invasion shows the immense power needed to break the back of Japanese resistance on Iwo Jima on March 17, 1945. Just off the beach, landing craft await their chance at the unloading area, while small boats from the transports ply back and forth bring assault troops and returning wounded for treatment. Further out, the transports themselves faintly along the horizon, the protective screen of destroyers, destroyer escorts and cruisers can be seen. On the island, Marine tanks can be spotted moving through the rough terrain toward the first airfield at left. With his hands in the air, the first of 20 Japanese emerges from a cave on Iwo Jima on April 5, 1945. The group had been hiding for several days. Navy successfully brought B-29 bombers within range of Japan's home islands, and they carried out massive attacks involving high explosives, incendiary bombs, and finally the two most powerful weapons ever used in war, the newly invented atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Anti-aircraft gunners, center foreground, pour a deadly stream of fire into an already burning Japanese kamikaze plane plummeting toward the flight deck of the USS Sangamon, an AV escort carrier, during action in the Ryukyu Islands near Japan on May 4, 1945. This suicide plane landed in the sea close to the carrier. Another Japanese aircraft later succeeded in hitting the ship deck, inflicting heavy damage. 6 days after the bombing of Nagasaki, and after much internal struggle, Japan surrendered on August 15, 1945. Flames leaped from the deck of the USS Bunker Hill after it was hit by two kamikazes in 30 seconds on May 11, 1945 off Kyushu. 346 aboard were killed, another 264 wounded. World War II was over. Tanks of the 6th Marine Division probed the outskirts of Naha, capital city of Okinawa, Japan, on May 27, 1945. On August 28, the occupation of Japan by the Supreme Commander for the Allied powers began. Perched on the rim of a gaping hole in the wall of a theater in the Ryukyu capital, a Marine rifleman views the result of the American bombardment of Naha, Okinawa, Japan, on June 13, 1945. Structure skeletons are all that remain of the city with a pre-invasion population of 443,000 people. The surrender ceremony was held on September 2 aboard the United States Navy battleship USS Missouri, at which officials from the Japanese government signed the Japanese instrument of surrender, thereby ending the hostilities. A formation of Boeing B-29 Superfortresses of the 73rd Bomb Wing fly over Mount Fuji, Japan in 1945. Allied civilians and military personnel alike celebrated VJ Day, the end of the war. However, some isolated soldiers and personnel from Imperial Japan's far-flung forces throughout Asia and the Pacific Islands refused to surrender for months and years afterwards, some even refusing into the 1970s. Flames spread through the city of Teramiza, Kyushu, Japan, after incendiary bombing by the 499th Bomb Squadron, 345th Bomb Group. The role of the atomic bombings in Japan's unconditional surrender and the ethics of the two attacks is still debated. A night view of burning Toyama, Japan on August 1, 1945, after 173 American B-29 bombers dropped incendiary bombs on the city. Formerly a big producer of aluminum, the city was 95.6% demolished. The state of war formally ended when the Treaty of San Francisco came into force on April 28, 1952. After an incendiary bombing, a view of some of the damage in Tokyo, Japan in 1945. A strip of residential buildings remains undamaged, surrounded by ashes and rubble of neighboring structures burned or blasted to the ground. 4 more years passed before Japan and the Soviet Union signed the Soviet-Japanese Joint Declaration of 1956, which formally brought an end to their state of war. The expanding fireball and shockwave of the Trinity test explosion, seen 0.025 seconds after detonation in the New Mexico desert on July 16, 1945. Photo credit, AP Photo U. Incendiary bombs are dropped from B-29 superfortresses of the U.S. Army Air Forces on already burning landing piers and surrounding buildings in Kobe, Japan, on June 4, 1945. The terrible damage done to Tokyo by American bombers can be seen in what was once a residential district in the Japanese capital, viewed months later, on September 10, 1945. Only large well-constructed buildings remain intact. Navy USAF. In flight over the Japanese city of Kobe, a U.S. Army Air Forces B-29 superfortress trails smoke and fire on July 17, 1945.